Good morning, class. How are you? Let us continue our lesson on post-war Philippines, moving on to a new era. Do you still remember the Philippine presidents that we talked about before the Third Philippine Republic? Can you name them? After the liberation, US had promised independence to the Philippines. They granted its promise after the war ended, but with a condition. The condition is also called as parity rights for Americans. That is, that Filipinos amend their constitution in order to give the Americans equal rights in the use of country's natural resources. Do you think is it fair or not? The Filipino people, through the leadership of successive presidents and responsible civic and political leaders, move on from the war to a new era. Yesterday, we had an idea on who are the following presidents. They serve in the First Philippine Republic, the Commonwealth government, and the Japanese puppet government. Can you identify these presidents? Manuel Rojas is the first president of the Third Philippine Republic. He is the fifth president of the country and he served for 1946 to 1948. Rojas is the first leader of the Third Philippine Republic and he assumed office for a very short period of 1 year, 10 months and 18 days to be exact. And he is the president of the new republic because the Philippines was finally free after World War II. But his administration faced grave post-war problems. In his administration, they started to reconstruct the war damage and the Philippines started breathing without foreign rule. But there are grave post-war problems that they had to experience like economic rehabilitation, cultural rehabilitation, financial poverty of the government, and to ensure that there was peace and order because there is a deterioration of the moral and spiritual fiber of the Filipinos was another threat to peace and order. Feelings of insecurity, starvation, and the struggle for existence greatly tested the values of many Filipinos. President Rojas was able to improve the economy of the nation, but he failed to curb graft and corruption in the government. There was also a growing communist movement that demanded land reform. President Rojas died of a heart attack in 1948 while still serving his term. Upon his death, Vice President Elpidio Quirino assumed the presidency. Subsequently, Quirino ran the 1949 presidential elections and won a four-year term. The Quirino government inherited grave problems from the Rojas administration. Faced with the challenge of leading a war-torn country, Quirino's main task was to reorganize the government in order to restore the people's faith in it. At that time, the government had been accused of graft and corruption committed by members of the Liberal Party. Another task of President Quirino was to increase labor production and provide employment to thousands of laborers. He also worked for the honest enforcement of the tax law. However, the issue of graft and corruption persisted during Quirino's term. His administration also faced a serious threat from Hukbalahap or Hukbong Bayan Laban sa Hapon movement, a communist-led guerrilla movement in the Philippines formed during the World War II. The Huk's emphasis on land reform attracted many peasants, especially in central Luzon. He also started Social Security Commission, now SSS. Other significant contributions that Elpidio Quirino did for the country is that he created Integrity Board to monitor graft and corruption. He also set Quezon as the capital of the Philippines, and during his time, the peso and dollar exchange rate was 1 US dollar to 2 pesos, a rate we can never regain from today's presidents. The seventh president of the Philippines was Ramon Magsaysay. He was known as the president of the common tao or masses because his programs aimed to bring freedom and progress to barrios and a better life to the people, especially the masses. He served the country from 1953 to 1957. President Magsaysay's administration worked for the improvement of the land tenure system, primarily by allowing the sale of public agricultural lands to the tenant farmers who tilled them. Magsaysay built roads and other facilities for the benefit of the rural poor. He also provided easy term credit to peasants and technical assistance to enable farmers to improve their farm operations. He ordered the construction of artesian wells and water systems to give rural folk clean water. During Magsaysay's term, the Huk rebellion grew stronger. The military fought a war against the Huk guerrillas. Finally, the Huks were defeated and the government promised to give the former guerrillas land in Mindanao. And in Magsaysay's term, the Philippines ranked second in Asia's clean and well-governed countries, and the Filipinos are allowed to enter the President's House or Malacanang Palace. Magsaysay is a military governor and engineer. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash before his term ended. This plane is named Mount Pinatubo. After his death, a prize called Ramon Magsaysay Award was established to recognize outstanding citizens of Asian countries for their contributions to their countries. At the death of President Magsaysay, Vice President Carlos Garcia took over as the eighth President of the Philippines during 1957 to 1961. President Carlos Garcia is a lawyer, acclaimed poet, teacher, and self-proclaimed guerrilla leader. He served as the Secretary of Foreign Affairs for 4 years until he became president when Magsaysay died in 1957. He is also known as the Prince of Visayan Poets and the Bard from Bohol. Garcia's program of government was based on austerity or extreme and enforced economy. This meant more work, more thrift, more productive investment, and more efficiency. He introduced the Filipino First policy, which stopped the heavy importation of American goods to give priority to local business. The policy was adopted to push for the Philippines' economic independence from US. He also worked to establish the dignity of the Filipinos as a free people, and during his time, cultural arts was strongly promoted. Carlos Garcia is the first president whose remains were buried in the libingan ng mga bayani or Heroes Cemetery. Have you been there before? Today, we learned about the Philippine president since the post-war era and independence. Did you learn something today? I hope you do. If ever you have questions, feel free to message me or leave a comment on the comment section below. Thank you so much, Grade 4, and God bless you.